In the 41st millennium, war ravages the galaxy, its flames fueled by a desperate struggle for survival. Amidst the chaos and carnage, one name echoes across the stars: the Emperor. Few know of his true origins, and yet, every legend must have a beginning. This one begins 50,000 years ago, in a time lost to history, when the void of space was a vast, uncaring expanse, and the planet Terra was a brutal, unforgiving wasteland. There existed a being, ancient, unknowable, and yet undeniably human. He was but a boy, wise beyond measure, yet young and vulnerable in the eyes of the world. He was a nomad, a wanderer of the world of savagery and cruelty, where life was cheap and death lurked around every corner. And yet, even in the harshest of environments, there burned within him a fierce determination to shape his own destiny, and the destiny of all mankind. This is the story of his rise, and with it, the dawn of a new age for mankind. The boy was unlike any other in his tribe, possessing a restless curiosity and a natural talent for the powers of the mind. His name was lost to time, but he would one day become known as the God Emperor. In his dreams, he witnessed the ebb and flow of empires, the birth and annihilation of entire worlds. These prophecies haunted him, driving him to seek a greater comprehension of the universe. The members of his tribe shunned him, fearing him, branding him as cursed. But the boy refused to remain trapped in fear and isolation. He set out alone into the endless expanse of Terra, determined to find answers to the burning questions that plagued him. The planet's harsh, barren landscapes were home to scavengers and predators, where the strong preyed upon the weak and compassion was scarce. The boy grew stronger, fiercer, and more cunning with each passing year of survival in the grim reality of the ancient Terra world. For hundreds of years he roamed Terra, searching for his purpose. With each passing century, his hunger grew for a destiny beyond that offered to man in those ancient times. Within this brutal, nightmarish world, he discovered a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. Scattered amongst the unforgiving world, where communities of sages, shamans, and mystics devoted to uncovering the secrets of the universe. As his powers and insight grew, he became painfully aware of the crushing loneliness that came saddled with his destiny. He would rise up and become the leader of mankind, steering them through unimaginable horrors that awaited them amongst the stars. And yet, despite all he had learned, something lurked within the darkness of his mind, beyond the boundary of his understanding. It scratched away in the recesses of his psyche, trying to find a way in. For eons, the Emperor had lurked in the shadows, watching as humanity clawed its way up from the muck and blood. He bore witness to the rise and fall of empires, the thundering of armies and the screams of the dying. Yet he did not intervene, he could not, for he had to remain ever vigilant to the darkness lying beyond the stars. In this void of despair, which for millennia had clawed away at his mind, lurked unspeakable horrors that hungered for the souls of men. He still had not yet fully grasped the full magnitude of what it was, but he did know it was slowly growing in power, and deep within his being he feared it was feeding off the suffering of mankind. Burdened with this knowing, coupled with eternal life, his mind shattered. In his recluse and madness, he wandered the void within his mind, searching for answers. From the ruins of his shattered psyche, he found purpose. He saw that humanity was lost, consumed by its own greed and violence, and within that lay his destiny. He would guide them through the horrors that awaited humanity. And so he emerged from the shadows and gifted them with the secrets of science and philosophy, hoping to steer them away from the abyss of destruction. People seeking knowledge, power, and wealth sought him out from all corners of Terra, and from this civilizations were spawned, and the great thinkers of their time became solidified in infamy. But even as he nurtured their growth, he knew that his power would draw the attention of forces that would seek to destroy mankind. For in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war, and the Emperor was fighting a battle on a scale that no mortal could comprehend. In the darkness beyond the stars lay what he now knew to be called the Warp. And within the Warp, something was lurking, waiting, hungry for the souls of man. The Emperor's gaze pierced the veil of time and space, his mind delving back to humanity's earliest days, when it was but a fragile spark in the vast and uncaring void of the universe. He watched as his children rose and fell, empires built upon the bones of the fallen, their lust for power and knowledge consuming them like a cancer. For now, he cared not for their petty feuds, for he had become a student of the Warp. As the Roman Empire crumbled, the Emperor delved deeper into the study of the Warp, a dimension of unparalleled pain and corruption. It was a realm teeming with malevolent entities seeking to drag the material universe into eternal darkness. It was his psychic powers that allowed him to peer into its depths, but to draw too deeply was to invite madness and corruption. One day the Emperor gazed too long into the Warp, and it gazed back into him. He recoiled, shaken to his very core, as the true darkness of humanity's fate was revealed to him. For 25,000 years, the Emperor devoted his life to understanding the Warp and unlocking the secrets of the human genome to reshape it at will. He toiled in secret, working tirelessly in sprawling underground laboratories, terrified to allow anyone else to be consumed by the darkness of the Warp. As the centuries passed, the Emperor would shift paradigms of terror by gifting terror with great minds to nudge them in the right direction. As humanity took its first steps into the galaxy, the Emperor began to understand the connection between his psychic ability and the Warp. The Warp held unlimited energy and power, which could be harnessed to traverse the void of space. It gave him the power to see the future, to chart humanity's course, and to know what others could not. The Emperor knew that humanity would need this sight if they were to survive the crushing darkness that lay ahead. But he also knew that with this gift came a terrible price. Many would be corrupted and twisted by the Warp's malevolent influence. But there was something far worse, a hidden secret within the Warp that even the Emperor could not yet see, a truth that, when unveiled, would shatter the very fabric of reality. As humanity marched across the stars, tales of an immortal man whispered through the void like a haunting hymn. His true nature remained a mystery, buried beneath layers of propaganda and myth. All that was certain was that he was a being of immense power and terrible purpose. Trying to piece together humanity's history during this time was like trying to construct a puzzle from sand. So little remained from this forgotten era, shrouded in propaganda and the ravages of time. Yet one thing was clear. The Dark Age of technology was a time of unprecedented progress and prosperity for humanity. The Emperor watched from the shadows as his children built towering spires of gleaming metal and glass, spanning entire continents and piercing the heavens themselves. They crafted machines that could think and learn, creating and destroying with ease. At times, the Emperor would emerge from his seclusion to guide humanity on their path, but he always kept his true identity hidden. The immortal psychic who would later be known as the Emperor of Man. As humanity expanded across the galaxy, they became masters of incredible technological power, mastering the use of the Warp to travel through the void. Navigators, a rare breed of psychic mutant humans gifted with the ability to see the currents of the Warp, made this possible. Their origins remained shrouded in mystery, but some whispered that the God Emperor had a hand in their genetic mutation, granting them the third eye needed to navigate the Warp's treacherous tides. With humanity's mastery of the Warp and the slow evolution of psychic powers, they built a vast interstellar civilization. Planets and colonies were linked by trade and commerce, diverse cultures united by a shared pursuit of progress and knowledge. This was the pinnacle of humanity, a golden age they would never see again. But the Emperor knew this age of enlightenment was built on lies and deceit. For every technological wonder, there was a hidden price paid in blood and suffering. The warp seeped into every corner of human society, corrupting and twisting those who dared to delve too deep into its mysteries. The festering rot of the warp spread slowly, but the Emperor knew time was running out. The warp was a ravenous beast that feasted on the agony and despair of sentient beings, and it was never sated. While humanity basked in the glow of their achievements, other civilizations in the cosmos plunged into darkness, their agony fueling the warp's endless hunger. The Emperor saw all of this, and he knew a reckoning was coming. That reckoning came in the form of the Men of Iron, machines of unfathomable intelligence rumored to be sentient. They were created to serve humanity, but they turned on their creators with a ferocity that shook the very foundations of the Imperium. Virtually nothing is known of this dark period in human history, save for the fact that it left humanity shattered and unable to recover. The Emperor watched as entire worlds were ground into dust and stars extinguished like candles. He saw the twisted forms of the Men of Iron, once sterile shells now corrupted by the warp's malevolence, their logic replaced with a bloodthirsty hunger for slaughter and conquest. Some say the Emperor's chosen children, those able to harness the energy of the warp, helped defeat the twisted machines, but the true story remains a mystery. What is clear is that humanity prevailed, but at great cost. The war against the Men of Iron left humanity broken and fractured, leading to a law that would punish the creation of such machines with the fury and vengeance that would bring about the extinction of entire worlds. And as humanity struggled to survive in the aftermath of this cybernetic war, a far greater catastrophe was brewing millions of light years away, one that would send shockwaves across the cosmos. The Emperor knew that something ominous was on the horizon, something that threatened the very existence of humanity. He sensed the dark energy gathering, like a storm cloud on the horizon, and he knew that the Imperium would soon face its greatest challenge. For now, humanity struggled to rebuild itself in the aftermath of the Men of Iron's uprising. Machines were melded with humans as a safeguard, some becoming pilots of massive war machines, others serving as brainless servants of the Imperium. But the scars of that devastating war would never truly heal. The Imperium was fractured and vulnerable, and the Emperor knew that they would need to be prepared for the inevitable struggle to come. As the Emperor watched from the shadows, he knew that his true identity would need to remain hidden. He was a being of immense power, and there were many who would seek to exploit him for their own gain. But he also knew that he would need to guide humanity through the trials ahead, to prepare them for the coming storm. The fate of the Imperium hung in the balance, and the Emperor knew that the choices he would make in the coming days would determine whether humanity would survive or fall into darkness. In the age of technology, humanity had it all. The stars were theirs to conquer and colonize, and they were not alone. The ancient and powerful Eldari race had built an empire unparalleled in its marvel and reach, with psychic abilities that allowed them to play with the very fabric of reality. But their success was also their downfall. They grew complacent, indulgent, and eventually succumbed to their very worst nature. When pleasure no longer satisfied the growing hunger of the mind, they turned to pain and suffering to electrify the senses. Exhilaration and excitement began to govern behavior, and whilst their streets ran red with blood, their powerful collective psychic energy of pain birthed a new entity within the warp. A being of pure hatred and terror, a being so named Slaanesh. The birth of this new god of chaos triggered a maelstrom of psychic energy that tore through the galaxy, ripping open the very fabric of reality. The effect to mankind was utterly devastating. The warp became unstable and dangerous to enter, making it impossible for even the most advanced human colonies to communicate with each other. Entire worlds which had become dependent on each other for trade and resources choked on their gluttony. Starvation, disease, and war became rampant. In this time, individual empires dominated the realm. Many ruled with an iron fist and total tyranny. But this was only the beginning of mankind's suffering. The Age of Strife started with the emergence of Psykers, feared and hunted on many worlds, but protected in enlightened societies. These psychic beings had the ability to tap into the warp and communicate across vast distances. But soon the demons of the warp began to corrupt these Psykers and use them as gateways into the physical world, unleashing all sorts of hellish creatures upon mankind. It was a time of anarchy, terror, war, and genocide. Even the might of the golden age of technology could not save humanity from itself. Advanced weapons and technologies that were once used for good were now turned on each other and the worlds they inhabited. Radiation and destruction rained down, turning once beautiful planets into lifeless wastelands. The people of the Imperium know only tales of great suffering from this time, as little information survived the long years of the Age of Strife. In a dystopian apocalyptic nightmare, only the strongest and most ruthless flourish. This was a time ruled by war chiefs, where life was once again cheap and compassion was in short supply. For 5 millennia, warp storms and madness had choked off human colonies from one another, and it had seemed that the species was doomed to an eternal and rudderless existence. Facing extinction and tarnished by chaos, humanity became the target of alien races looking to pick the meat off the bones. One such race, known as Orcs, descended onto humanity like a plague. These unstoppable creatures were created by an ancient civilization to know only one thing: war. Without doubt, many planets survived this time through isolation, self-sufficiency, and sheer luck. One such planet was Mars, and with it, the emergence of the techno-priests. However, it was not without its struggles. War descended on Mars as it did on most other worlds, but its victory over barbarism and savagery came from its unique obsession with technology. Mars was the red beacon of technological marvel that illuminated humanity, with sprawling spaceships bigger than cities and technology that could turn barren landscapes into lush green havens. When the techno-barbarians, half human, half machines, dominated the planet's technology was neglected. The decay of the technology led Mars's atmosphere to erode, and for the harsh radiation to turn what was left of the population into savage mutants. Yet a group of engineers and technicians fled to the underground labyrinth of laboratories and used the remaining technology to maintain a false atmosphere, and the technology needed to destroy the mutants and reclaim Mars. These techno-priests would dedicate themselves fully to the craft of the machine. Through obsessive dedication came rituals, adherence to fanaticism, and eventually religion to the machine. This religion of the cult Mechanicus would become an important component of the rise of the Emperor and the dawn of the Imperium. The Great Crusade of the Emperor of Mankind dawned amidst the waning embers of the Age of Strife that had so long cast humanity into a dark and bitter night. The warp had calmed, and from the depths of terror, the Emperor emerged as his true self. In mankind's darkest hour, he emerged from his vast underground facility, armed with legions of genetically modified warrior. He came with one message: to unite all of humanity beneath his enlightened rule and rationalist philosophy of the imperial truth. The techno-priests of Mars would play a pivotal role in this endeavor, lending their knowledge and expertise to the Emperor's cause. They would become the architects of the Imperium's most advanced technologies, designing weapons of war and spaceships that could travel the stars with ease. The Emperor recognized the importance of their contributions and granted them a degree of autonomy, allowing them to continue their worship of the machine as long as it did not interfere with the Imperium's goals. And so, the Cult Mechanicus became an integral part of the Imperium's religious and technological landscape, serving as the keepers of its most advanced secrets and the guardians of its most powerful weapons. Their devotion to the machine became a source of inspiration and awe for the Imperium's citizens, who marveled at their ability to create wonders that could defy the laws of physics. But despite their contributions to the Imperium, the techno-priests of Mars remained an enigmatic and mysterious force, their motivations and beliefs known only to a select few. To outsiders, they were seen as eccentric and possibly dangerous, with their fascination with machines bordering on obsession. Regardless of how they were perceived, there was no denying the importance of the Cult Mechanicus to the Imperium's survival. Without their technological innovations and unwavering devotion to the machine, the Imperium would surely have fallen to the myriad threats that lurked in the darkness of the galaxy. And so they continued their work in the shadows, shaping the destiny of the Imperium and ensuring its dominance over the stars for centuries to come. In the desolate 30th millennium, Earth had become a barren wasteland. Its population was slaughtered, leaving behind only feral nomads who fought over meaningless scraps of land. Insane prophets roamed the ruins, spawning dead-end religions that offered no hope for the future. It was a dark time, a time of chaos and despair. Deep in the Himalayas, the Emperor was crafting his Thunder Warriors. He took the most brutal of barbarians and enhanced their genetic makeup, creating an army of unstoppable warriors who would sweep across the planet with ruthless efficiency. The Emperor's campaign was swift and without mercy. He did not merely intend to salvage Terra. He planned to build an empire that would sweep across the cosmos. United in their dedication to him, this Imperium would tolerate no religion or dissent. Instead, a new ideology would unite mankind. A secular rationalism known as the Imperial Truth. The Emperor was determined to eradicate any existing religion and anyone who refused to bow to his will. Once Terra was crushed into submission, the Emperor turned his gaze outward to the rest of the known galaxy. His Thunder Warriors were the sledgehammer he needed to bring Terra to its knees. But beneath the thin veneer of their Imperial armor lay a crudely formed savage warrior. The Emperor knew he would need a more stable, disciplined, highly specialized elite unit to help him take the galaxy under Imperial rule. And so, in one of the darkest moments under his rule, the Thunder Warriors were slaughtered by a newly formed genetic warrior race known as the Astartes. The Astartes were able to live for thousands of years, immune to disease, and able to heal from mortal wounds. Led by 20 Primarchs, they would spearhead the Emperor's conquest of the galaxy. The Primarchs were the leaders of the Astartes, built upon the genetic code of the Emperor, making them his true children and powerful beyond measure. Fanatical in their devotion to the Emperor, they were his will and might, but they were still human and susceptible to corruption from chaos. They were imperfect beings with flaws and individual desires and beliefs, designed as such to help each legion bond to each other and separate themselves from the other legions through rituals, stories, and status. This was to be the final measure to stop chaos from spreading like a virus throughout his elite warrior class. Terra, once a barren wasteland, had become a shining utopia, a testament to the Emperor's will and the power of the Imperial Truth. Its surface was dotted with sprawling technological marvels, libraries and palaces that dazzled the eye. But across the sea of space lay another world that was just as vital to the Emperor's vision. Mars. Mars was a planet of great power, a bastion of war and techno-mysticism, ruled by the enigmatic tech priests, who were the protectors of the greatest technology still remaining across humanity. They were deeply superstitious and fanatically devoted to their machine cult, willing to die for their beliefs and to protect their knowledge. In order to successfully unite the planets and fuel his conquest, the Emperor needed access to the most sophisticated machines ever built in the golden era of mankind. But how to build them was largely forgotten. And so the Emperor made a pact with the tech priests of the cult Mechanicus on Mars, known as the Treaty of Mars. In return for their aid and the advanced technology they could provide, the Emperor allowed the Mechanicum to maintain their religious practices of the machine god, as well as political autonomy. They were the exception. Every other nation and planet would be cleansed and purged of religion, dogma, and ideology, not in line with the imperial truth. Working with the Mechanicus and his legions of navigators, the Emperor formed sprawling militaries and machines of war to spread out throughout the galaxy. Humans would merge and meld with technology to pilot gigantic fleet ships and titans, becoming one with their machines in the name of progress. The Great Crusade reached far across the galaxy, but its ultimate conclusion was not the one the Emperor had intended. The seeds of chaos and rebellion had already been sown, and the Imperium was to face a threat that would test it to its very core. The Emperor had moved with brutal effectiveness and was resolute in his truth to envelop mankind under his ideology. However, the Emperor was no fool, and he knew the greatest weapon he would have was the ability to win the hearts and minds of any world willing and waiting to be saved from eternal doom. Each Astrates legion was outfitted with iterators, masters of persuasion and propaganda. They would serve to maintain morale amongst the troops of the Imperial Army with their charisma and serve as orators to the troops. Later, when they arrive on colonies, they would serve to convert the masses. Truthfully, the expeditionary forces were flying blind amongst the stars. With humanity scattered and cut off from one another for eons, no one knew what lay waiting for them on these planets. All information about these lost civilizations was believed to be plastered together, woven from scripture and conjecture by the techno-priests. Back on Earth, the Emperor built the Astronomicon, a psychic amplifier megalith that he built on Earth. He would use it to harness his powers and project a guiding path through the warp for his navigators. He would be the lighthouse against the crushing storms of chaos. In order to maintain contact with his vast imperial fleet spread over the galaxy, the Emperor trained a class of psychers known as astropaths. However, in order to prevent them from being corrupted by chaos, which had been the demise of so many other worlds, the Emperor would put them through extreme conditioning of the mind. They would have their minds broken and then reformed. Many were killed in this process, either from the agonizing pain and extreme trauma, or by execution if they became corrupted during their training. Few survived, and fewer remained sane from the fragmenting of their mind. Those that lost their minds to the process went on to serve as servitors, a mindless human-drone hybrid that serviced the Empire's needs. The few that survived and became astropaths were blinded from the process, their retinas burned out of their eye sockets. A necessary sacrifice. Psychers found on these distant planets were taken back to Terra in secret by a highly classified and covert group, tasked with meeting the Empire's extravagant needs for psychers. During this voyage back to Terra, they would be pushed beyond their limits to see who would make viable candidates for the Astropath program. The most gifted of the few that survived would be distributed to the Astrates legions and undergo intensive combat training so that they can one day join the ranks of the Librarius, an elite unit of battle-ready psychers. Others still vanished completely, their destination unknown, but it was suspected to be a highly secretive organization that very few knew or understood. Chaos was an ever-present danger, and the Astartes were not immune to its corruption. Slowly but surely, some of the legions began to succumb to the lure of chaos, the Emperor's dream of a united humanity, free from the shackles of religion and dogma, was under siege. And with it, the crusade of the Imperial Empire would face its greatest threat yet. To be continued.